So I've seen some YouTubers making these ranked videos on a band's discography, but no one's done 311, a band I've really connected with in recent years, so I'll give it a shot. No, this is purely my opinion, not an objective ranking. Now, let's get started, starting with last place. Number 12, Universal Pulse. I think fans are expecting a little bit more than a mere 8 tracks for their big 10th album. This album isn't bad per se, just lacking. The opening track, Time Bomb, starts the album off strong, with lyrics that do a decent job representing the band's vibe and message. Wild Nights is catchy, but lyrically a bit shallow and simplistic for 311 standards. The track Count Me In has a memorable riff, but is pretty forgettable otherwise. The album closes strong with A Ways to Go, a spacey, mellow slow burner. Overall, I like Universal Pulse, but it's easily 311's most flawed album. My top 3 favorite tracks are Sunset in July, A Ways to Go, and Wild Nights. Number 11, Music. I hate to put this one so low because it's such a good debut album. Their unique fusion of reggae, rap, metal, and alternative was established front and center. It's full of aggressive bangers like Feels So Good and Plain. They also established their melodic side with tracks like Paradise and My Stony Baby. Perhaps it's so low because they are just getting started here, and their unique sound still had some growing and expanding to do. It's a really good album, I just prefer their other releases slightly more. My top 3 tracks from the album are Visit, My Stony Baby, and Do You Right. Number 10, Uplifter. This album gets slack for being too poppy, but this point doesn't hold any water for me. 311's massive diversity of genres is well established at this point, so why should pop be off limits? Additionally, these aren't your standard pop tunes. The choruses are grand and even epic at times, like the tracks Golden Sunlight and India Ink. My only gripes are its production, which is nice, but a bit too sugary at times. Not to mention some throwaway tracks toward the end of the record. If you're a pop fan who's curious about 311, maybe this album is your place to start. My top 3 tracks from the album are India Ink, It's Alright, and Two Drops in the Ocean. Number 9, Mosiac. This was a huge release for 311. It's their longest album since 1997's Transistor, and their most diverse in a while. Not to mention their most critically acclaimed in a long time, and I can see why. The production is fuzzy yet sharp and detailed, and the majority of tracks are hits. My issue is a few directions it takes simply don't pan out. Tracks like Too Much to Think, Till the City's on Fire, and Places the Mind Goes sound like they're trying to be top 40 hits, and just lack that 311 spirit. But overall, I'd still say it's like 80% hits. Top 3 tracks, Perfect Mistake, Extension, and Syntax Error. Number 8, From Chaos. This album was my introduction to 311. Not surprising, since it contains possibly their biggest hit, Amber. This is their first album of the 2000s, but it stays true to their 90s rap rock flair. In terms of songwriting, there's not much to comment on. It's more of the same. The stronger tracks are concentrated toward the beginning and end of the record, with a few forgettable tracks in the middle. Overall, From Chaos is just another solid release from 311. Top 3 tracks are Amber, I'll Be a While, and From Chaos, the title track. Number 7, Don't Tread on Me. This one's an odd choice. Most fans put it in their bottom 3, and I understand why. It's definitely on the lighter side, and the production is nothing standout. And Waiting is easily one of their worst songs. But this album just has a really pleasant charm to it. The vibe is very carefree and easygoing, from the spacious track Frolic Room to the somber track Getting Through to Her. You could argue Speakeasy is just another Amber clone, but that doesn't make it any less pretty. On a side note, I got into this album when I first transferred to my first real college, where I was living on my own and whatnot. That may explain my bias and why I get the vibe from this album that I do. Not the easiest 311 album to defend, but I still love it regardless. Top 3 tracks are Long for the Flowers, It's Getting Okay Now, and the title track Don't Tread on Me. Number 6, Self-Titled, aka the Blue Album. At this point, we delve into 311's true masterpieces. This defining album put them on the map. It doesn't get more iconic than tracks like Down and All Mixed Up. 311 begins showing their space rock side with Random, and plenty of aggressive rap rock tunes like Hive and Guns. One of their greatest melodic cuts comes in the form of Purpose, not to mention lesser-known gems like Sweet. Overall, Blue Album earns its legacy for sure. Top 3 tracks are Don't Stay Home, Purpose, and All Mixed Up. Number 5, Soundsystem. I view this album as a combination of Blue Album and Transistor. It contains the more straightforward style of Blue Album, but is tinged with those trippy Transistor sounds. This makes for one of the best 311 albums in terms of sound. The more Transistor-sounding components being the tracks Flowing, Life's Not a Race, and Eons. Large in the Margin features one of their strongest choruses, which is underlined by a melodic synth. There's also plenty of fun, straightforward cuts like Come Original and Strong All Along. Although Mindspin always annoyed me. Not sure why. It was a tricky toss-up between this and Blue Album, but I believe Soundsystem edges it out. My top 3 tracks are Large in the Margin, Life's Not a Race, and Sever. Number 4, Grassroots. This one is the most hard-hitting and energetic of any 311 album. It features more raw production, as opposed to the slightly more polished sounds of the following releases. The reggae choruses of Omaha Style and 6 feel more authentic, while slow jams like 8:16 AM, Lose, and 123 feel more organic. You could argue that the previous album Music had the same kind of raw, organic production, but I feel Grassroots kicks it up a notch. In terms of speed and aggression, it doesn't get any better than Nuts' Symptom. Tade is one of the more interesting tracks, which features S.A.'s fast raps over this tropical, smooth lead guitar, not to mention some interesting lyrics in Offbeat Bare Ass. Top 3 tracks are Homebrew, Omaha Style, and 123. Number 3, Stereolithic. Many consider this a return to form, and I see why. Sound-wise, it's more in the spirit of their 90s albums, but with a bit more sheen. Lyrically, it features more philosophical and science fiction-oriented themes, hence the tracks First Dimension, Existential Hero, and The Great Divide. The track Sand Dollars critiques the value in our system of currency, while the closing track Tranquility teaches us not to fear the unknown. Over the 15 tracks, some do feel a bit samey, but it hardly brings down the album. Overall, it's easily one of 311's most grand and fully realized. Top 3 tracks are Boom Shanka, Made in the Shade, and Make It Rough. Number 2, Evolver. One of their most mature albums for sure. Beyond the Gray Sky is one of their strongest lyrically. It's an anti-suicide ballad, which has a rather dark ending about a friend who ends it all, and wondering if there is anything you could have done to help. The track Sometimes Jacks Rule the Realm is one of their most progressive tracks. The instrumentation is far more complex than your average 311 song. I could talk about the other tracks, but I wouldn't have much else to say aside from praising them. The album is also possibly their most alternative rock sounding, which definitely appeals to me. The only duds being Give Me a Call, which sounds like a From Chaos B-side, and the track Same Mistake Twice, which is just kinda average. Evolver is near perfection for me, and only one 311 album tops it. Top 3 tracks are Crack the Code, Still Dreaming, and Sometimes Jacks Rule the Realm. Number 1, Transistor. Where to even begin with this one? By far their most creative, experimental, conceptual, diverse, and well-produced albums to date. It blends more genres than any other album of theirs. Production-wise, everything sounds spacey, often with a psychedelic flair. Nick's deep reggae style of singing, combined with S.A.'s lighter, more wispy style of singing, have always harmonized well together. Although on Transistor, their vocals are laced with a trippy-sounding vocoder, bringing their vocal melodies to new heights. This production also allows for more breathing room on the melodic cuts, such as Inner Light Spectrum, Prisoner, and Running. Lengthwise, it's 21 tracks, which sounds excessive for any band, but rest assured, everything works. First of all, most tracks are only around 2.5 minutes, so nothing drags or overstays its welcome. Tracks lead into each other with ease. For example, the space rock track Use of Time flows effortlessly into the rap rock track The Continuous Life. While these tracks differ genre-wise, they are similar in tone and lyrical themes, making them blend well. There's also moments like Color, a short instrumental which transitions the album from some blissful tracks into a string of darker, more eerie tracks. One of these tracks being Light Years, which features a synth lead similar to that of 1950s sci-fi movies. Lyrical themes are at their most intriguing here, with songs about the human condition, other dimensions, portals, inner peace, insanity, the apocalypse, human evolution, and so on. There's also plenty of simple messages about enjoying life and having a good time, like Jupiter and stealing happy hours. Fans and critics generally dislike this album upon release, but over time it's become a fan favorite. I believe this album to be their masterpiece, and is an all-time favorite of mine for sure. Top 3 tracks: Transistor, Prisoner, and Running. So that was the video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you're a 311 fan, feel free to comment how you'd rank the albums in the comments. Yeah, that's about it. Peace.